Secret Quest on the Atari 2600. Now, here's one I completely missed out on as a kid. Several of you have written in about this one, so I'm experiencing it now through a fresh perspective, and I have to say what they accomplished with Atari 2600 hardware is very impressive. Frankly, it's downright incredible. Okay, so the story here is that alien bases have sprung up all over, opening up gateways for all sorts of evil alien beings like dragons and dancing bear traps, which will wipe out the human race. You play a lone human tasked with infiltrating each base and locating the special code needed to activate the base's self-destruct sequence, and then you'll have to make it to the teleport pad and get off the base before it explodes. Along the way, you'll fight all sorts of enemies such as dragons, ghosts, and dancing bear traps. But check this out, these levels are complex. The gameplay here may remind you of Berserk or maybe even Venture, where you're navigating through these rooms in a top-down perspective. Now, you'll have to use your imagination here a bit, since all of the rooms on the alien bases do look exactly the same, save for the entrances and exits. Take a moment to process what's going on here. The sheer size and volume of rooms they were able to include here is staggering given this is all on an Atari 2600 cartridge, and it gets even more complex. Okay, so here's how the game actually works. You start off the game on the title screen and you have to enter your initials. Make sure to keep track of what you input here because that's going to come up later, and also how many Atari games get a nice title screen like this. Then press the fire button on your joystick and now you start off in the first room of the alien base. On the very first screen, you actually don't have a weapon, but navigate to the second room and you'll find a sword. This is starting to look a little familiar now. Keep making your way through the rooms and you'll start to encounter enemies that seem to teleport into the rooms. There's a bit of a rhythm to this, and you'll have to get the hang of how the enemies appear on screen and when they'll actually be vulnerable to attacks. The controls are very smooth though, and your character moves easily in 8 directions. Everything runs great, and there's no flicker here at all when you're dealing with the enemies on the screen. Also, look at how detailed all the enemies are, and your character for that matter. After you defeat an enemy, they'll drop an item, either an energy pod or an oxygen tank. So again, this is all fairly impressive here. It's not a one hit and you're dead game, and instead you've got a couple of meters down here in the corner. The top meter is your energy meter and the bottom is your oxygen level. You can replenish these by defeating enemies and picking up the power-ups, but fighting enemies depletes your oxygen and energy, so there's a trade-off. Your oxygen also steadily decreases over time. Run out of energy and you can still move around, but now you can't use your weapon to fight an enemy, which means you're unable to replenish your oxygen tanks. Yeah, run out of energy and you're probably not long for this world. Run out of oxygen and you're dead. So you're going along, exploring the alien base, smashing up enemies and finding your oxygen tanks and energy pods. We're not doing too bad here. Eventually you come to a room with a mysterious symbol in it. What could this symbol be? Well, it turns out this is the detonation code for the self-destruct sequence you'll need to activate later to destroy the alien base. You'll probably want to jot that down. Keep exploring the base and you'll come across another room with a flickering symbol in it, and you won't be able to get past the doorway. Okay, so this is where you'll activate the detonation device to destroy the base. Now, this is a little awkward here, but press up against the mysterious force field that keeps you from entering the room, and you begin to cycle through the available code options. When you get to the code that you found in the other room, press the fire button on your joystick, and now you've activated the self-destruct sequence. Get the heck out of there before the timer runs out. You've got 20 seconds to find the teleport door before the whole place goes up. Not bad, kid, but there's still 7 more bases and it only gets more difficult from here. As you explore each base, the layouts become more and more intricate and complex, sometimes even including stairs to multiple levels within the base, to the point that you'll have to draw a map if you want to remember where you're going. It's incredible to think that they were able to program this many rooms into a tiny little Atari cartridge. Also, the enemies get more difficult to kill and the codes start to get more complicated as well, with 2 or more characters. Now, technically if you find one code, you may be able to guess your way through the second character when you get to the detonation room, but remember that the whole time your oxygen tank is running down, so you're always on the clock here. And the codes randomize each time you play. Yeah, they thought of that too. Also, there's more items that you can find besides your sword to help you on your quest. You may be able to find a sonic blaster or a particle beam, and you may also find a sonic key to open certain doors. That's right, kids, this Atari 2600 game actually has an inventory system. If you toggle the black and white TV switch on your console, this brings up a special status screen, and there's a lot going on here. The symbols on the top 2 rows represent the remaining bases, and there will be empty slots if you've already destroyed some of them. Further down represents which level of the current alien base that you're on. If you've gone up and down flights of stairs, this will be helpful as you draw out your map so you can keep track of where you're going. Some of these bases have 3 or 4 separate levels to them, and that's just insane. Also over here to the right, you've got your inventory. If you push the fire button, you'll toggle through items in your inventory. Whichever one is visible is your active item. So if you need to use the key to open a door or you want to change your weapon, here's where you'd go. Also, this screen doubles as a pause feature if you need to jot down notes on your map or just need a breather, so that's handy too. Again, just take a moment to process all of that. I can't think of too many games that made use of the black and white switch in such a creative way to add a whole new dynamic to the game. It's similar to Star Master where it uses the switch to bring up a navigation screen, but it's even more complex than that. Just wow. So anyway, you're blasting your way through all these convoluted maze-like levels, drawing your maps and trying to find detonation codes. The enemies are getting tougher to beat and you have to defeat more of them in each room before you even get oxygen and energy drops. By the time I got to the third level, this just went off the rails. The only way you'll go far in this game is to basically explore each level and make yourself a detailed map, and then make your way through the level in the most efficient way possible so that you find all the codes without running out of oxygen. But by now, you're probably thinking, that sounds impossible if you have to keep restarting your game from the beginning after you die. Well, they thought of that too. If we toggle back into the status screen, you may have noticed a series of bizarre symbols at the bottom right corner that almost look like hieroglyphics. You won't believe it, but this is actually a password so that you can continue your game at a later time. So every time you start a new level, you'll want to jot these symbols down in case you die or if you just want to basically save your game and come back later. Here's how it works. Remember on the title screen when you entered your initials? Well, that's important because the password is dependent on the initials you entered. I guess maybe this was a feature to keep little kids from sharing passwords. I don't know. Anyway, if you just pop the cartridge in and you want to pick up where you left off, you'll enter those same initials again, then on the very first screen of the very first level, this only works here, toggle into the status screen. Okay. Now press the game select switch on the console until the first symbol at the bottom is flashing. Now use the joystick to toggle through the symbols and enter your password from your previous game session. Press the fire button and boom, you're back at the first room of the stage where you left off. It even remembers how much oxygen and energy you had left, which could be a bad thing. The energy and oxygen carries over from the previous stage and doesn't refill after you destroy an alien base, so if you haven't been efficient with your time and don't have much left, you may still want to start the game from the beginning so that you can try to find the most efficient path through the game as possible. But still, holy crap, how awesome is that? The programmers of this game seriously deserve some sort of major award. Okay, so to be fair, this game came out late in the Atari 2600's lifespan. Very late. It wasn't released until 1989. It was actually the last officially released game on the console in North America. By that time, games had gotten pretty complex on the 2600. The box art notes this game was programmed by Nolan Bushnell, a pioneer in the Atari industry, although technically it wasn't. Steve DeFrisco actually did all of the programming, and for some reason the game was credited to Bushnell on the packaging. DeFrisco was asked by Bushnell to come up with a title similar to The Legend of Zelda with a top-down room exploration, and Secret Quest was the result. Regardless of who made it, Secret Quest is a fantastic achievement given the hardware. It used a special chip in the cartridge called the SARA Super Chip that added a massive 256 bytes of RAM, making Secret Quest a 16K cartridge. To put that in perspective, the Donkey Kong port on Atari 2600 was done using only a 4K cartridge, so they had way more space to work with here. I mentioned this game was released in 1989, and to that end, the game is actually somewhat difficult to find. It's not clear how many copies of Secret Quest were officially sold, but it's fair to say most gamers had probably moved on to newer consoles by then. Everyone was too busy playing more modern games such as The Legend of Zelda, unless they got stuck with a stupid Dr. Mario under their Christmas tree instead, to note a Secret Quest on the store shelves, and these days it's actually a little difficult to find a physical copy. Prices tend to go on the higher side, but it's not often you even see it for sale anywhere. There was a complete in-the-box copy selling for $60 on eBay at the time of this review, but if you're a fan of the Atari 2600 and want something with a little more teeth on it, this one is absolutely worth seeking out one way or another, even though the difficulty spikes off the charts after the first few levels. I do wish there was a little bit more of a steady curve to the difficulty, but it's still really cool and very well done. Well, what did you think? Did you get a chance to play Secret Quest when it came out, or maybe track down a copy more recently? How far did you get in this game? I'd love to hear if anyone actually managed to destroy all 8 bases, because I absolutely couldn't. As always, thank you for watching. Please don't text and drive, and I'll see you next time on Friday Night Arcade.